With Alaska weather, I'm Emily Niebuhr. It's June 22nd, 2023. You can reach us at 1-855-937-4977, or you can find us online at weather.gov/Alaska, or you can email us at nws.ar.tvweather@noaa.gov. We love to hear from you, so please reach out. Now we've passed the summer solstice and we've started our summer, so it's important to remember to have some safety when you're out enjoying the outdoors. Your chance of being struck by lightning greatly increases if you stay outside during a thunderstorm, and lightning can strike from up to 10 miles away. Even if you think it's far away, it can be that far and still impact you. So if you see a flash dash inside, here are some of the activities people were doing when they were recently struck by lightning. So that includes running, construction, swimming, boating, golfing, walking, gardening. So please be careful if you're doing any of these activities, and if you see a flash of lightning, go inside and watch the storm from inside. Now we do have our fire weather update. This is from Thursday, June 22nd, today. So we have minimal wildfire risk for South Central due to ongoing bouts of rain and cool temperatures. So that's good news. Minimal wildfire risk. Subsurface duff layer is still comparatively damp and cool for late June in most areas. The one exception to this, though, is the upper Yukon Valley. The outlook is that thunderstorms into the weekend will drop enough rain to render starts of new wildfires unlikely. So we will have enough rain that we're not worried about some of those more dry lightning strikes that we get concerned about. Upper Yukon Valley will continue to have Alaska's most burnable fuels. So, but for a lot of coastal Alaska, a wet and windy weekend is expected. So if you plan on boating this weekend, please keep an eye on the latest forecast. There are going to be some unusually gusty winds along a lot of our coasts this weekend, and heavy rain in some locations. So we have gale 4 winds for the Northern Gulf, Barren Islands, and Kamishak Bay for this upcoming weekend. Gusty southeasterly winds for Turnagain Arm, Portage Valley, and Anchorage Hillside. And again, like I said, steady rain for coastal areas. So please stay tuned for the latest forecast and be careful if you're going to go out hiking or boating this weekend in those areas. Let's take a look at our current satellite information. As you can see, we have a low circling around AKwx, and with a front system that goes all the way into the Alaska Peninsula. So we had widespread clouds today. As you can see, we do have that low pressure system. It's 993 millibar low out near AKwx with its associated front that stretches all the way across and is just coming up towards the Alaska Peninsula. So very rainy and a little windy across much of the Bering Sea today due to that low pressure system. Meanwhile, in areas of the interior, we do have a weak interior trough that is expected to bring some thunderstorms. Now, we don't have any advisories at the moment, but there is some concern that there could be a few strong thunderstorms in that area. So if you live in the central interior of Alaska, please stay up to date and watch some of those lightning tips we just talked about. So basically widespread rain across the state. Tonight, that low is very stubborn. It's going to be staying in that area and stay at about the same intensity overnight. Same thing for this much weaker low that's going to be bringing some rain, but not as intense as the other system. And meanwhile, we are expecting high pressure to build into the North Arctic coast with some local fog and stratus along especially coastal areas. By Friday, again, that low is making very little progress, maybe a little bit farther east, but and its front is pushing inward as well. So again, rainy day for Friday for much of the Bering coastal areas. Also, we're still seeing that high pressure build in across the North Arctic coast, and we have a thermal trough stretching in from the Yukon into portions of the interior, so you might get some thunderstorms again tomorrow in isolated areas. For Saturday, we start to see that low pressure system I was discussing that for this weekend might bring some strong gusty winds into Kodiak up along the North Gulf Coast as it continues to move northward. And we'll just keep an eye on that and see where it tracks. But there could be some concerns of if you're boat, or I should say unusual, unseasonable winds. let's look at some of our temperatures across the state. So for Friday morning, we're looking at temperatures in the 50s across the Juneau area. We're also looking for lows in the 50s towards Gulkana, 48 along the Kenai. So staying fairly warm. For our high temperatures, we're getting up to 74 in the interior Friday. So some nice weather as you go interior. Stay a little cooler along the coast in the 60s. 56 in Kodiak Island with that low pressure system nearby. As we look towards Juneau, where you're seeing temperatures again in the upper 60s. So nice day over there in the Juneau area in our panhandle regions. Saturday morning, fairly similar. Again, we're looking at temperatures in the lower 50s to upper 40s across much of South Central and into the panhandle as well. By Saturday afternoon, we're seeing warm temperatures in the interior up to 71 in Gulkana and even mid-60s near Anchorage. So fairly nice weather on our Saturday. As we go into our Friday morning, as we go further north, you see our temperatures are going to be in the lower 30s along the North Arctic coast. We're also looking at temperatures ranging from like the 40s up until mid-30s for Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, again, a nice summer day in the interior up to 78 in the central interior. Then we're looking at lots of mid and upper 70s. So nice day for your Friday afternoon. But again, watch out for a few thunderstorms developing maybe in the afternoon. Again, staying fairly cool along the north coast, but we're looking at temperatures reaching even up to 58 in some areas. So nice Friday afternoon. Saturday morning, again, we're looking at temperatures in the lower 40s to mid 30s along the Arctic coast. And meanwhile, as we go into interior areas, we're going to be staying into the mid 50s for your lows overnight. We're looking at 82 in the interior on your Saturday afternoon and widespread 70s and an 80 in near Fairbanks possible. So summer is definitely in full swing in our interior for this Saturday. Let's look at your Friday morning across the Bristol Bay area. We're looking at 43 near Dutch Harbor. So we're looking at low 40s across much of the Bering Sea, or the lower Bering Sea, excuse me. Friday afternoon, we're going to warm into the lower 40s across the areas and even near 60s in Bethel area. So nice Friday afternoon there. Saturday morning, again, this low is going to be keeping temperatures a little chilly with that rain. So we're looking at lower 40s. And as we get into Saturday afternoon, we're going to warm up a little bit to upper 40s and some 50s where that front is moving through. So a little wetter and chillier along that coast. So let's talk about our long-term outlook. This is an official forecast from our Climate Prediction Center. It's our 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. It's from June 28th through July 2nd, so right up into the 4th of July holiday weekend, which we will all be watching closely. But again, we're seeing below average temperatures continuing across the Anchorage and southern portions of the state. Meanwhile, as we go into more of the interior, we're starting to see kind of these warmer temperatures, more seasonal, I should say, in the Fairbanks area and all the way out to Kotzebue, and even a little bit above average in Ukqiavik and the Arctic Village in the 6 to 10 day outlook. So definitely a nice place to be. It looks like in the Panhandle, we are looking at temperatures are expected to be a little bit below average for this time of year. Let's look at our precipitation outlook. We are expecting to have greater than average precipitation across the Fairbanks area and into the Arctic Village. So even warmer temperatures, but we're still going to be seeing more rainfall in that area. And again, this spreads all the way down to Anchorage. So it's likely that we will be a little bit above average in our rainfall in the 6 to 10 day outlook, with a little bit closer to normal as you go further west, but still generally across the state, we're going to be seeing precipitation that's ranging greater than we would normally expect for this time of year, even including down into the Juneau, Ketchikan, and Sitka areas. So we're definitely going to be seeing above average precipitation in those areas.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Thank you for joining us today on the aviation portion of this broadcast. First, we're going to start looking at our IFR and VFR conditions, which again are indicating where we might have lower clouds, lower ceilings, and lower visibilities in our state. So first, let's look at the Bering Sea. We do have a low pressure system on Friday morning impacting much of the region and part of the coastal regions as well. That will be causing widespread IFR conditions in sea areas. We also have a weak system that is still bringing low clouds across much of the Gulf of Alaska and coastal areas for your Friday morning. Meanwhile, up in the north, we have high pressure over the North Arctic coast, and that's causing low stratus for your Friday morning and lower visibilities. Meanwhile, we're mostly clear across much of the state, or at least we're seeing good flying weather across much of the state with higher visibilities. And that maintains into the afternoon. We might have slightly lower visibilities by Friday afternoon due to some developing showers in the area, but generally good visibilities. Again, in much of the Bering Sea, we have that prominent low is going to be keeping visibilities low across much of the region, and we also have lower visibilities along the North Arctic coast. Let's look for your Saturday morning. Again, we're expecting mostly lower visibilities across much of the Bering Sea and along the Arctic coast. As we go into your Saturday afternoon, again, that low pressure system is going to be keeping lower visibilities, and we still are going to have some lingering clouds along the North Gulf coast of Alaska, although we are going to be seeing improving conditions by the afternoon hours. Let's take a look at your passes. For AKwx Pass, we're expecting mostly VFR conditions and fairly good visibilities for your Friday. Adigan Pass, similar conditions as well. Very clear conditions across much of the interior and good flying visibility there. As we move towards Lake Clark and Merrill Fields, they're going to start out in lower visibilities at IFR with some improvements to MVFR by the afternoon hours. For Rainy Pass, they're going to start out at IFR conditions with an improvement towards VFR conditions in the afternoon hours. Windy Pass, the same. We'll start out at MVFR with an improvement towards VFR by the afternoon hours. For Isabel Pass, we're expecting conditions to start at IFR with improvement towards VFR by the afternoon. For Mentasta Pass, we are expecting MVFR conditions, which will improve to VFR towards your afternoon hours. For Tahina Pass, we're going to start at MVFR conditions with an improvement towards VFR by the afternoon hours. Same story in Portage. We're expecting some low-level marine stratus associated with that weak system, but it should improve to MVFR by the afternoon hours, but still expect low-level clouds in the area. As we go further east, and Chilkoot and White Passes are going to start out pretty low visibilities at IFR, but improvement towards VFR by your afternoon. Let's take a look at your freezing levels across the state. Again, a lot of cold air up in the north, but we're seeing freezing levels aren't until about 8,000 feet across much of the interior and 10,000 as you go further east towards that high pressure system. So lots of nice warm air in the region. Freezing levels are going to be lower though as you go towards that low pressure system. We're looking at about 4,000 feet as you go towards the eastern and central Aleutian Islands. For your icing concerns, again, mostly related to that low pressure system, we are going to be seeing isolated to moderate icing conditions above about 7,000 feet as we go into the Aleutian Islands. And again, some isolated moderate icing as you go more into the Chukchi and northern Bering Seas. For Friday, as we're looking for your jet stream at upper levels, we do have winds to about 75. Again, associated with this low, there's a fairly weak jet. We also have a weak jet about 95 as you go towards Kamchatka Peninsula. As you go lower in our atmosphere, 9,000 feet, you start to see a low-level jet to develop around that low-pressure system over the eastern and central Aleutian Islands. As we go to 3,000 feet, again, 40 knots associated with that low-level jet across the eastern and central Aleutians, and fairly calm conditions as you go across much of the state associated with that high-pressure system. Finally, let's take a look at your turbulence. Again, mostly associated with that low pressure system with those winds moving across the eastern and central Aleutian Islands. But we also have associated with that front across the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay areas.
Welcome to Star Hustlers, or is it Stargazers, or something else? I'm Trace. The Big Dipper is one of our most frequently referenced star patterns, but like many things in the world and in the night sky, it's had many names. Hit the darkness around 11 p.m. and look northwest. The Dipper has 7 stars and is part of the constellation Ursa Major, the Great Bear. The Bull has 4 stars, Dubhe, Merak, Phecda, and Megrez, while Alioth, Mizar, Alkaid, they mark the handle. A Dipper is like a ladle, but for drinks. I've always thought of it as a saucepan myself, but in Germany, these stars are called the Great Wagon. In Ireland, it's the Farmer's Plow, and in some West African countries, it's a drinking gourd. That name was brought to the American South, where the drinking gourd helped people navigate northward to find freedom from slavery. Enjoy the summer solstice this week and keep looking up.
Since I was a little boy, I've traveled 40 to 50 miles up that river. I'm a commercial fisherman and a hunter. I hunt and I fish for my food to put on the table, and I love it. I'm Jerry Ivanoff, born and raised in Unalakleet, Alaska. I fear not for myself, but for the future generations. The lack of ice, the lack of snow has an effect on the animals and the fish that we depend on to live.
The Arctic Report Card workshop here in Nome, Alaska has been an opportunity for Indigenous people who are along the Bering Sea coast to share their experiences about the impacts of climate change for our future generations.
The Arctic Report Card is an annually produced peer-reviewed report on the state of the Arctic.
The annual Arctic Report Card says the pace of sea ice decline and surface ocean warming is unprecedented.
U.S. government scientists say there is an unparalleled period of warmth in the Arctic.
This year, for the first time, we are including a chapter on the Indigenous perspective. Specifically, it will be a chapter focused on the changing Bering Sea.
I think observation is very important.
My grandparents, they taught me how to look in the sky and observe the clouds. And they used to call me their weather person.
My father was very aware of the environment and the weather conditions, ice conditions. So he spent a lot of time talking to me about what to look for and what to watch out for.
Scientists will come in, spend a year or two in the Arctic, and then gather a whole bunch of information and then go back. The big advantages that Indigenous people have is that they're there the whole time.
And they've seen significant changes that should have been documented starting 20 or 30 years ago.
For many years, the formula has been to invite 1 or 2 Indigenous experts into a room full of scientists to hear what they have to say. At this workshop here in Nome, we are trying to shift that balance in a major way where essentially I'm the only scientist in the room.
And we are good stewards. We never depleted any stocks. We kept our land and our waters clean.
When I was growing up, the Bering Sea would be completely locked up. And now what ice we get is, we call it sikule. That's the young ice that's formed from the bottom of the ocean as slush. It floats up. Now it's thin. It's easy to break up.
We need the ice, and with it diminishing, our walruses are in danger. Even the whales that I depend on are in danger.
We have frequent storm surges, flooding, hotter temperatures, not only in the air but in the water, and it's affecting the well-being of fish, plants, and animals.
With the water being 10 to 15 degrees warmer in the Norton Sound, I caught so many belly-up fish in 2019 I've never caught before. My nets actually were totally stinky.
The biggest change I see recently is the lack of the seabirds, the migratory birds.
As a child, we had more subsistence foods. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of food, which makes up for everything. We were rich with our foods. Today, I worry about that food disappearing.
We're having to adapt to change our ways of hunting.
It's a whole different world that we're going to have to learn to deal with.
They're seeing now what many of us are starting to see or will be seeing soon, and the longer we ignore these kinds of stories and these kinds of examples of what's in store for us, the worse things are going to be.
It is critically important for Indigenous experts from Alaska, like Jerry and Melissa, to come to major scientific meetings, like the American Geophysical Union in San Francisco, to share their observations about the warming Arctic.
10 years ago, our sea ice was about 20 miles outside of our communities, and now it's at minimum 50 miles out. It's just up to us to continue to adapt and not just stay stagnant.
I feel very positive that our voices are finally being heard.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Thank you for joining us today on the marine segment of your broadcast. So you can see our sea ice continues to erode away, but almost ice-free waters all the way up along the coast, almost until Point Hope. That's where you start to see a higher concentration. Again, less than 80% is kind of the light blue ice color, and then greater than 80% is the white. So again, still in a stronghold along Ukiavik and along Prudhoe Bay, but again, we're definitely seeing some of that loss of sea ice into the Chukchi Sea for summer. Let's look at your Friday marine forecast. Again, as some people might be out on their waters heading towards the weekend. And so it looks great for the Juneau area. It doesn't look like we have any gales in the area, at least for Friday. Looks like our greatest winds are at about 15 knots and waves up to about 4 feet as you go into the Gulf of Alaska. So be aware of that. Saturday, we have slightly stronger winds. We have some winds up to 20 knots as you go up towards Yakutat, but still in interior waters, it's mostly looking like winds of about 10 knots and waves 2 to 3 feet. Now let's look at your forecast as you go up into South Central. You can see we have a little bit of a jet coming out of, we're seeing about 25 knots, waves up to 5 feet. So if you're going across Shelikof Strait, make sure that you are aware and ready for stronger waves. But as you go north up Cook Inlet, you're going to see winds of 10 knots and waves up to 2 feet. As you go into the Gulf of Alaska, we're looking at waves about 4 feet. And again, some stronger winds south of Seward, about 20 knots or so. So be aware of some of those conditions. As we go into your Saturday, you can see again, we're looking at that jet about 20 knot winds and waves about 4 feet. Kind of fairly calm along the Cook Inlet. But again, as we talked early in the segment, we have some concerns as we move towards Sunday, depending on that track of the low. So stay tuned. Prince William Sound, we're looking at waves 2 feet, winds 15 knots. Okay, let's have a look at your Alaska Peninsula forecast. We do have a little bit of a jet associated with that front as you go south of the Aleutian Islands. So you're definitely seeing greater seas up to 4 feet south of Cold Bay. And we do have some winds up to 25 knots in the Bristol Bay area and waves up to 2 feet. And as you go further west, closer to that front, we're looking at 4-foot waves. Again, you can see that imprint of that frontal system. As it's moving across, we do have winds are going to increase for your Saturday. So we're looking at 20 knots with waves up to 4 feet in the Bristol Bay area, and winds and waves a little stronger to the south, about 5 feet south of Falls Pass. Friday, you can definitely see that imprint of the low stronger. We have waves up to 12 feet, and we do have winds of 25 knots. And as you go north into the Bering, we still have some of those winds close to 25, close to small craft, but we have waves about 9 feet near the central Aleutians, but we get closer to 4 feet near Atka. But be aware, kind of some unseasonal waves and winds with that strong system. We're looking again, waves of up to 8 feet to the south on your Saturday, and winds 20 to 15 knots across the area. Let's look at your Friday marine forecast for the Bristol Bay, St. Paul region. We're seeing waves of up to 4 feet, up to 3 feet as you go north, and then we're seeing winds about 20 knots. Up near Nome, waves 3 feet, winds 15 knots. As we go into your Saturdays, things remain fairly calm, fairly far away from that low pressure system. So waves just 2 to 3 feet up north. But again, as we get closer to that system, we're looking at waves of 5 to 6 feet in the Pribilofs and winds about 20 knots. For Friday, as we go even further north, we can see winds of about 15 knots, and in Chukchi Sea and some of those ice-free waters, waves only of about 2 feet and winds about 10 knots. So you go into Saturday, similar story again, widespread 15 knots, and in those ice-free areas, waves just generally 1 to 2 feet. So again, as we were talking about earlier in the broadcast, this is the low that again is going to be bringing the strongest waves and winds to the Aleutian Islands for your Friday and Saturday areas.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.